Hi guys. So today I wanted to share a use case around the filter function and using the filter function for more advanced analysis and reporting. And the idea actually stemmed from my wife asking me to do a summary of all the expenses on our bank statement. And I essentially built a little analysis tool that gave me the ability to select an expense type and a date range, and basically have a summary of all the transactions making up that expense type for those dates or between those dates, and to also bring back specifics around the first date and the last date of transaction, the number of transactions in the period, the average, and the total. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but firstly I'm going to unpack the filter function itself. We're going to be talking about the different parameters, the optional parameter, and essentially start with the basics. So if you want to skip the basics, please feel free to skip later in the video. I've got chapters down in the video so that you could actually skip to the more advanced things if you wanted to, but I'm going to cover the basics as well. And this workbook is also available in the description below. If you want to follow along and you want to work on it on your own, please feel free to do that. Essentially, this analysis also gives me the ability to make a copy of it and give it a name and say, for instance, interest. And I could then make this change this drop down box into interest and give interest its own unique sort of range, and that will essentially do all the summarization for me. And that's the reason for this use case. So it's completely copyable, and I can have one for every expense. But the nice thing about this is it's dynamic, it's sorted, and it basically just brings back the specific fields or the specific columns that I require. So first things first, let's talk about the filter function. Let's start with the basics, because I did receive some comments in previous videos where someone told me this is awesome, but it's completely above my level of Excel. And the idea behind my channel is to try and make everything as simple as possible and to bring Excel to more people. And I believe that 99% of Excel users are not even using 80% of its functionality. That's the purpose here. So that's why we're unpacking the basics. So if you want to go into the Microsoft support, almost everything that I'm sharing is contained within the support site. You can actually go to support.microsoft.com and you can go and read up on all the documentation. They've got nice videos, especially on the new things. They've got the syntax there. But essentially the purpose of a filter is to filter a range or array. Now, what is a range? A range is any one cell or group of cells. So it can be contained or it can consist of multiple rows and or columns or fields, or just one. That's a range. And an array is essentially the same thing. An array in Excel terms consists of columns and rows, and you get a 2D array, which is essentially one column or row of information. You get a 3D array, which is columns and rows. And essentially an array is typically just something that is spilled from another function, or it can be a named range, and that can be called an array. Okay, so that's an array. So any block of information or any information can be entered into that parameter. And then the include is essentially a parameter that returns. It's a Boolean array, and all that Boolean means is it's true or false. So it returns something in the height or width that is the same as the array. So the include parameter is mostly used for row information or to filter row information, but it can actually also be used to filter for specific columns or fields. And I'm going to show you both those examples. The include parameter is what makes the filter function unique and what makes it powerful, because the include parameter gives you the ability to use and or operators, and or operators, And essentially you can, for instance, go and filter and say, I want all sales above a specific amount for this product not in this country. And you can say all of those things. You can also have all parameters in between. So that's where the include parameter comes in, and we're going to unpack that. And then if empty basically just gives you the ability to say, if my filter returns an empty value or empty values, don't give me an error. Don't tell me hashtag calc, which is what the filter function will show you, hash calc, if it doesn't find a value from your array. Then just return a string or another array of information. So that's what the if empty operator gives you. XLJet is a very nice area or it's a very nice website where you can find simple to advanced examples and use cases that you can work through. All right, so getting into the examples, I'm going to show you 3 examples. The one is going to be a sorted filter. The other one is a filter with an AND operator, as well as only returning specific fields. And then the last one is an OR parameter, only returning all of them, but showing an OR parameter. So the table that I've created is a little table with a country, a salesperson, a product, and a sales. And what's nice about this is it's already in a table. It's a named table, so it's called sales, and therefore I can just refer to it directly. So if we want all sales above 3,800, I can say filter, and my array is my sales table. So I'm just going to type SA tab, and it'll say sales. Include for me everywhere where the sales field is larger than 3,800. Close that up, and we've got our answer. What's important is that this filter function would need headings. It doesn't return the actual headings, so it just returns this block of information. And what's nice about that is you can actually go and sum up this information now, and it will actually not include my headings. So that's what's nice about this. And this is now an array. So this can be used in the next filter function, for instance. So I can actually filter a filtered function. And because this spills like this, it's an array in Excel terms. All right. We also wanted this sorted, so I could just go and wrap this in a sort. And wrapping that in a sort would actually sort by the first field, which is country. You'll see it's actually sorted it ascending by country. Now the sort function can also allow me to choose a sort index. So I could say sort by the 4th column, which is sales, and I can also say sort by sales, then by product, then by salesperson. That's also an option. And I can also choose a sort order, descending, for instance. I can also sort by a column if I wanted to. And you'll see that these parameters are block parameters or block brackets, and that means they're optional. So you don't have to sort by them, but now we're sorting by sales descending. All right, the next example is basically an AND parameter. So I want to say return for me only salesperson and sales where product and is golf balls and country is South Africa. So those of you that know SQL will know that this is essentially Excel's way of creating a SQL script. So this is just basically saying select salesperson, sales from sales table, sales table, where product is golf balls and country is South Africa. So that's basically it. So let's write that out. So I'm going to have a filter, not a field value. Apologies. I'm going to have filter, and filter is, I'm going to filter the whole table. Okay. And I only want you to include where product. Okay. So in order to do this, I need to use the asterisk or the multiplication parameter or operator. And I basically set it up beforehand so that I don't struggle or that I don't get confused by my by my syntax later on. And I can also include a not if empty parameter here if I wanted to. Hopefully I can show you how that works as well. So now it's set up, but basically I want to say filter where the product is equal to golf balls, and where my country is equal to South Africa. Right, and that will return everywhere where golf balls in South Africa is contained. Now I just want to return salesperson and sales, but let's type in another country that's not here, like India, and you'll see that returns the not found, that last parameter. If I hadn't included this parameter, you would see a hash calc answer, and that's not what we want, right? So that's that, and basically I wanted this to South Africa. So I wanted only to return salesperson and sales, and that's basically my second and my fourth field. Now I can do this with an index function as well, but I'm going to do it with a filter in this case as well to show you how to filter an array just to include specific fields. I'm going to put this in curly braces, and again we're going to use ones and zeros. A one is a true and a zero is a false. So true to include, false to exclude. So the first one is a false, second one's a true, third one's a false, and the fourth one is a true. And that would actually return only the salesperson and the sales. And that's exactly what I wanted. So finally, I'm going to do the OR parameter, and the OR parameter is denoted by a plus sign. So again, we're going to do filter, and I'm going to say include my whole array, and I am wanting to include where. Okay, so now in this case, I'm going to build it out again. Open bracket, close bracket, plus sign, open bracket, close bracket. And then I'm not going to put the if empty in this case because this is just an example. But in practice, I would actually always include an if found or if not found or if empty parameter. So I want to say now where product is equal to baseball kit, or, and the plus sign is my or my salesperson is Joe. And in this case, this is returning everywhere where it's baseball kit, baseball kit or Joe. And that's exactly what I wanted. So those are the sort of simple examples, but that's everything you need to know about filter. Now, I told you the filter function becomes difficult where we have complexity in the middle parameter, which is essentially my include parameter. And this include parameter is actually what makes it powerful, but also that can make it difficult. But as long as you remember to put everything in brackets and put a plus sign in between, you could essentially build out anything. And if we just unpack how this works, we could go into formulas, go into evaluate formula. And if I go into evaluate this, you'll see it returns every single thing, and it's going to measure this against the baseball kit. And it's going to return trues and falses everywhere where it found the baseball kit. And in this case, it's the OR parameter. And it's going to say salesperson everywhere where that is Joe. And that's going to show true and false. And now if you take this literally and you take falses as zeros and you take trues as ones, then in this case it's plus. So a 0 plus a 1 is a 1. So that's how OR works. So if it's either false or true, it's true. And in this case, if it's true plus true, it's 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 is also seen as true in this case. But if it's false and false, then it's false. In this case, and that's how the OR parameter works, and the multiplication is essentially the same as in the maths context. A 1 times a 1 is a 1, but anything times a 0 is a 0. So any time where there's a false, it's not meeting both parameters, and that's why it is essentially returning a a false and not including it. And that's how the operators work. So if you want to remember it like that. But the evaluation you'll see is taking all the trues and the falses, adding them together, and returning a 0, a true, or a 0, a 2, or a 1. And everywhere where it's 2 or 1, it's a true, and it's returning my actual answer. Right. So to get into the more, let's call it, advanced analysis, all I essentially did is everything that we've covered already, but I'm just going to build this out. I took a filter. My array that I filtered is my transactions table. I've called this transactions already. So I'm just going to say I filter the whole transactions, include where my date, in this case I've got 3 parameters. So I'm just going to build this out. I've got 3 AND parameters, and then I've got my not found, for instance, not found. And the first parameter is taking dates. So it's taking all dates, and it's saying whether it's larger than or equal to my start date, and where my end date, also again transactions, open bracket, choose the date, tab, close bracket, smaller than or equal to end date. And the final parameter is saying where my expense type, so in this case it's going back to transactions and saying where my classification is equal to my expense type over there. And that's returning everything that I'm looking for, but it's returning more columns or more fields that I require. So again, I wrap this into another filter, and my include parameter is just saying include the first, the third, and the fifth field. And I put that in curly braces, close that up, and I've got my answer. Right, so that's how I built it. And then my sum functions, or my first and lasts, could have again been done with indexes and or filters. So let's do the first one as an index. Because Excel sees a date as a number, I can say the min of essentially the index of my array spilled, the hash that's taking the full array. The row, I want the full row, or I want all rows, but for the column, I want you to take the third column. And that would actually give me my first date. Oh, sorry, wrong field. I want my first column. So that's my date. And if I format this as a short date, then you'll see that's my first date. And then for this one, I could now go and filter, for instance, if I wanted as well. So I could have gone and said the max of filter for me, this array spilled, and include, in this case, the first column, not the second, not the third. And that gives me my answer. And then count is again just the count of my array. You could have gone again index, could have gone array, and could have gone the first column. Could count the numbers of dates. You get the gist of it. So essentially average is just the last column with a filter or an index, and total is the sum, or subtotal 9. So that's how I built this, and these are just date parameters. This specific field is done with data validation, and essentially I've got a data validation rule that takes my source as types, and types is actually a little array function that has a sorted unique list of transactions, classification column. So my classification column is a sorted unique field over here, And this spilled reference, because if I take this as a reference now and I spilled it, then this is essentially what it is. So I've just made this a named range. So you could go in here, define a name, call it something, and just add a hash over here. And now I can refer to something by going equals F3 and double click on something, and something would actually spill this. So all that I'm doing is I've saved that as types now, and I've made this data validation referred to types. But over here I can also use F3 and refer to something if I wanted to, and it'll work in exactly the same way, which would include a sorted unique list of all my expense types. And my job for my wife is done. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've learned something. And if you have, please please share this video with your friends. Please subscribe. It really helps a lot if you subscribe, because monetization is a real thing in these days, or in these times that we're living in. And yes, please leave a comment. Tell me how you would have done it differently. It's always nice to find interesting comments in the comments field. And I mean, my channel is small enough that I actually try and answer and react to every single comment. So if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments box. And if you want to see more content, please let me know. If you want me to cover specific content, please leave that in the comments box, or I'm going to leave a Google form down in the comments where you can go and send me a personalized message and tell me what you would like me to cover in upcoming videos. Hope you enjoyed this, and take care. Thanks.